you have to be well aware about everything around you. See, you learn from every person that you meet. So it's not just your seniors. I think I've learned a little bit from everybody that I've either seen in court or I have come across during my entire 13, 14-year journey.
Good evening, all. Welcome to Superlawyers. Today we are with Mr. Harshavardhan Bhende. He is a highly accomplished legal professional with over a decade of experience and is the founder of Regulus Advocates and Consultants. Sir has practiced over a broad spectrum, which includes civil, criminal, corporate, commercial disputes, among others. Additionally, Sir also is a dedicated philanthropist and serves as a managing trustee of Dishan Charitable Trust, an NGO which is focused on improving the lives of visually impaired students. We welcome you, sir. My name is Anshi, and I work as an associate at Superlawyer. At Superlawyer, we aim to showcase inspiring stories that could greatly motivate and benefit our readers and young lawyers, along with the legal community at large. So today we welcome you, and I'd like Divya ma'am to please continue with the interview. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anshi, for the introduction. And thank you, sir, for giving us time and carving out some important moments to share it with us. Today, we are here at Super Lawyers YouTube channel. We welcome you, sir, wholeheartedly, and we request you to impart your wisdom with our learners. As my colleague introduced, Sir has more than a decade of experience, I would say rather 13 plus years of experience in various courts, including High Courts, NGT, and Supreme Court as well. So I'll start the question answer rather conversation by asking you about your personal experiences that may have influenced your decision to build your career in legal fraternity, and how was the path, how did you intend to follow it, and how it carved out for yourself, and how you have built your practice around it.
So first of all, thank you for doing this interview. It's a great honor and privilege to be speaking to you people, speaking to Super Lawyer, and hopefully trying to assist and provide some guidance to young lawyers out there. See, my journey in the field of law honestly started purely by chance. I was never supposed to be in the field of law, but like I said, it happened purely by chance. And as soon as I got into it, I started developing interest. So, in fact, I would say I'm more a product of reverse engineering than anything else, where my interest developed as I started working in the field. I predominantly come from a business family. And as every person born in the business family, your first inclination is towards the family business. But as I started working in the field of law, as I started interning, and thereafter, once I graduated and I started working with some law firms and some senior lawyers, it set out this kind of a feeling in me that I could work in this field and I could succeed in it. And it also enabled me to create my own niche, to create my own identity. And the rest is, as they say, is history.
Wow, from business family to an accomplished attorney, it's an amazing journey, I'm pretty sure. So you have also done MSc in management from Bradford University. What was
Yes.
the motivation behind doing this degree after law, and how has management degree or management education helped you in not only running your law firm, but actually working in the business operations field? Because usually we have hardly seen lawyers doing management degrees. So how has it turned out for you?
So, because I came from a business family, I needed something to fall back upon because, I joined the 5-year law course. So, obviously, I had no knowledge about business administration per se, apart from the practical side of things, which I saw how my family business was being run. So, I believe that I needed some backup that just in case my legal career doesn't take off, I should have something to fall back upon. But to be honest, my decision to do an MSc in management, and especially from the UK, has reaped amazing rewards for me in my legal field, simply because, when you are into corporate advisory or you work closely with companies, a lot of times as lawyers, it is very difficult to understand the mindset behind doing business. And you normally would only look at the business or you would look at the company from the purview of what the statutes say or what the law says. What the MSc basically helped me do is to differentiate and understand the business of my clients better. And hence the advice that I would give them was more in terms of enabling them, or rather giving them a better footing for them to do their business, and to also help them create a more solid foundation while doing business. As lawyers, a lot of times we tend to be a little pessimistic towards things. That's an occupational hazard, I would say. That being said, if you are able to understand your client and your client's requirements, especially somebody who is either got a startup or is a well-established entity, you are able to guide them in the proper manner and basically just enable the law to become more like a safety net for them rather than being an impediment. So that's how the MSc has really helped me.
That's an amazing addition, that after doing management, you were equipped to serve your clientele better and help in the building of law firm as well. But sir, before starting your career or your own practice, in your career, you have worked with several advocates, senior advocates as well. How was that journey helpful in shaping your career? As well as if you could share some key learning experiences from the time when you were practicing with them, learning the nuances of the trades. So that will also be a little bit more helpful. I'll sir add on just a little bit to it. Before you started your own practice, how did you make up your mind, or how did you decide that now I can go independent? Because there are times when you start working with someone and it becomes a little tough to decide that now I want to go independent. So please do share that thought as well.
When I started interning with a very senior lawyer here in Pune, and what he helped me understand is that when you're in practice, every little task that is given to you is of great importance. As I always tell even my juniors who work with me, that my first task was, for the first maybe 2 or 3 months, was only stapling the notices. But that also, how the staple should be done, how the letter should be folded. These are little things. Then when it came to the aspects of court, a lot of times you have to make applications which are handwritten. So how the paper needs to be folded, how those the creases need to be done. All these little things were taught to me. So law requires a lot of patience. And I was lucky that I had mentors like the seniors that I had, who basically enabled me to understand the finer nuances of law. See, when you're practicing, especially in the field of litigation, you come across various aspects. Simple things like you're in court, you need to file a particular bunch of applications or bunch of documents. They have to be threaded, or you have to drive that thread through the top corner of. How do you do that? How do you go about it? A lot of times, you're privileged if you have a clerk with you. But if you don't, how do you fend for yourself? And these smaller nuances help me a lot. Even today, if you leave me alone in my office, I can still operate on my own without anybody's help. So learning all these finer nuances. Then came the aspect of the art of advocacy, how to present yourself in court. One of my seniors would often tell me this, that lawyers are like stage actors. The courtroom is your stage, and everything that you do is noticed. Every word that you speak, everything that you cite, it gets your attention. So ensure that you're well prepared with what you're doing. You know what you're saying. You can't just go blabbering what you want over there. So even simple things like the way you would appear in court, or your entire get-up, whether you're well taken care of, how your coat is, how your band is, if your shoes are polished or not, for men, if you've shaved or not. These are little things that even matter, because at the end of the day, you're creating an impression. You're creating an impression in the eyes of the judge. You're creating an impression with the opposite side lawyer, and you're creating an impression not just with your client, but also with the other members of your fraternity. So learning these little things is very important. I see a lot of times the newer generation does not have the patience. They want to get from point A to point B in a jiffy. So law doesn't work like that. It's a process. You have to experience every element of that process. And if you are able to enjoy that process, the field of law really ensures that you are well taken care of. If you start getting impatient, you will realize that a lot of people leave the field of law, or they get into things like corporate practice, or they get into things like joining some company. See, litigation is tough, but it's fun and you have to enjoy it. You have to enjoy being in the court. You have to enjoy every moment of being in court. Just as is when it comes to non-litigation practice, it also requires a lot of patience because you are restricted to your office. You have to understand what your client requires. You have to understand how the market is behaving. You have to understand the field in which your client is currently operating. How does that field operate? What are the global ramifications of what you're doing? So you have to understand all these nuances while applying the various facets of law to a particular document. You have to be well aware about everything around you. See, you learn from every person that you meet. So it's not just your seniors. I think I've learned a little bit from everybody that I've either seen in court or I have come across during my entire 13, 14-year journey. But yeah, my seniors have played a massive role in shaping me as to where I am today. And I credit them for that.
Fabulous journey. The courtroom being the stage and advocates being the actor, it's a very beautiful way of explaining how it works. And so, when you were talking about all this, we would again like to start with the inspiration of yours behind establishing Regulus advocates and consultants. After years and years of practice, what factors actually influenced you or your decision to start your own practice, and how was it that you built the resources for the same? Because the struggle is to have those resources and have those clients in a manner to have that basis for your own law firm or basis for your own practice. So how has that part built over the years?
When I decided to go independent, it was a very tough decision because what happens is when you're working with a senior, you're living a life in a cocoon. Even if you make a little mistake, you know that you have somebody who's covering up for you. You know that a little here and there is fine because your senior is going to take care of it. But when you're breaking out on your own, you are the whole and soul of whatever you're doing. You're responsible for every action that either you or your juniors are doing. So, that being said, a lot of people find it tough going independent. One is predominantly because, especially if you're in the field of litigation, that work comes in slowly and the gratification for that work comes in even later. So a lot of times you will have lawyers who work for minuscule fees just so that they can get the work. But that doesn't mean that it keeps their cash flows going. And a lot of times it's like working in a loss, but you do it for the experience. Going independent is like diving into the deep ocean. The moment you feel that, yes, you're well equipped intellectually and with a little bit of experience to back you up, that's the time you should start thinking of going independent. Insofar as starting Regulus was concerned, I am a strong believer in the fact that consolidation is very important. If you can bring various people together and work as one unit, it helps serve the purpose better than working as a lone wolf. You can't behave like an individualistic person when it comes to this. You have to think that collectively what you can offer to people. And that is what Regulus is all about. We basically believe in providing a one-stop shop solution for all our clients. So a lot of times we have clients who come to us with a particular legal requirement. And during the course of handling that client itself realizes, oh, I have another issue that needs to be taken care of. Now, they need not go out to any other lawyer because they know that my office is well equipped to take care of that. So that is what was the thought process behind starting Regulus. And we've been able to do that to a large extent. I would say we've been able to do that, where we've helped clients in various walks of life, whether they're individual clients or whether they're companies. So we've really been able to help them, secure them, and that's how we want to keep working. So even whether it's me or whether it's my partner, our singular focus is to ensure that we don't treat law like a business, but we treat law as something that we are passionate about. And through that passion is what we generate business. So it doesn't work the other way around.
Thank you for sharing that bit. So you have been involved in many, many cases at the Supreme Court as well. if you allow and if you will be able to share or shed some light on a particular airline ticket refund case which has had bigger implications. What strategies did you follow, or how was it that you planned and you had that particular favorable outcome for yourself and your client? Obviously, the strategies, they do help, not always, but definitely strategizing better helps. And again, how has your management degree helped you in building that particular strategy over here in this particular case?
To be very honest, I was the second lead on the matter. I was not leading the case. This case predominantly was happening during the lockdown and post lockdown scenario during COVID. This is in 2020, when the government had basically put a stop on all air travel. And when that happened, you had a lot of people who are either passengers or travel agents facing tremendous losses because they had paid for their tickets for the travel during those months when the airlines had stopped operations, and they were unable to get their money back. And there was a notification by the central government saying that how the money will be returned back to the passengers and things like that. Now, there was a petition that was filed by one organization in the Supreme Court. I happen to be representing a travel agents association, and it was tasked upon me to see as to whether we could intervene in this particular case. I was lucky that I had the guidance and support of a very senior lawyer in Delhi, who today is a sitting judge of the Bombay High Court, Dr. Neela Gokhale, who was basically engaged by us to lead the entire matter. Now, interestingly, what happened was there were two other senior lawyers who were representing other organizations. And then the airlines came all guns blazing with creme de la creme of the legal field, where you had people like Hari Salve, Arvind Datar, Mukul Rohatgi, and the works. And you obviously had the Solicitor General also appearing for the Union of India. So honestly, for me, that was extremely intimidating because I had never appeared in a matter where you had such a star-studded opposition and people who I have looked up to in this field. So it so happened that on the day of the arguments, Dr. Neela Gokhale's mic couldn't work. And that was the only opportunity we were given for arguments. And it was absolutely magnanimous on her part, where she said, look, you know the case, just go ahead and argue. And I argued. And I was plain lucky that the bench of the Supreme Court heard me out in detail. And see, what happened was, till date, till that case, the element or rather who is a travel agent was never really explained to any other court. But travel agent was always treated like a middleman or a dalal, as you would say. But I basically went forward and explained the role of a travel agent and how that entire thing worked. And that struck a chord somewhere. And when the judgment came, the court basically put down all the suggestions and all the points that I had argued as a part of the judgment, which was tremendous. I mean, for me, that was incredible because the court mentioned my name in that because I have stated. So it was a wonderful experience. And I would say it's a feather in my cap because it ended up being a reported judgment, and which was the only reported judgment right now that I have in my entire plethora of work.
Wow, congratulations, sir, on being named over there. It's absolute privilege and a very valued thing. Over the years of your experience, how have you seen the legal landscape change and take shape, especially when it comes to corporate advisory or tech law or all these fields which are very emerging ones? And how have you worked around your own role, and how do you think all these technologies are going to play any role in future of your legal practice and of others, keeping in mind the way it is changing? It's not slow, it's in kind of exponential change phase, and AI is taking shape.
I would say this, that you have to look at law, or rather any field for that matter, in a pre-COVID vis-a-vis a post-COVID scenario. Because what the pandemic really did was it changed the landscape of how work is done across the world. Now, if you were looking at a pre-COVID scenario, this interview would be happening face-to-face. I don't think any of us were even aware about a platform called Zoom or WebEx or any of that nature till before the pandemic came into play. I mean, I remember only using platforms like Skype. I was completely unaware about things like Zoom till the pandemic really came about. And in the legal field, what it did was it brought about a sizable revolution insofar as how the courts function. So a lot of the courts, like the high courts and the Supreme Courts, the NCLT or the NGT for that matter, going virtual. I remember during that time, we would appear in the NCLT in various matters, and we would be appearing in various cities. So I would be sitting in my office in Pune, appearing in the morning, maybe in Mumbai, in the afternoon session, maybe in a place like Ahmedabad or Delhi. So what they did was that enabled people like me sitting in places like Pune to appear across India. Even that Supreme Court case that I could handle, it was a virtual case. All the counsels were appearing virtually. So what they did was it brought about a revolutionary change. Also, it brought about something which is known as e-filing. Like all documents which are filed in the court are e-filed today, where in the past we would go and submit everything in the court. Now it is all uploaded onto a platform and it is submitted there. So what happens is it brings in technology to a large extent, and it helps various people from various walks of life to also be involved in this field. Now, in the state of Maharashtra, you have the Bombay High Court, which is located in 3 places. You have it in Mumbai, you have it in Aurangabad, in Nagpur, and then you have also one in Goa. But let's keep Goa aside for the moment. We look at these 3 places. Now, each of these 3 benches have certain districts which have their jurisdiction to the Bombay High Court. A lot of these people who are from these districts which are far away from Mumbai or from Aurangabad or from Nagpur have to travel every time to the respective places to attend the matters. Today, what happens is I am able to sit in Pune, or the lawyer is able to sit in a place like Kolhapur or in Solapur, attend the matter in Mumbai virtually without having the trouble of traveling all the way there. So it is less time consuming, it is more productive, and it also enables a person who is sitting in a remote place to have the experience of appearing before the High Court. So what technology has done is broken down the entire monopoly of certain lawyers in certain places, that if it is a matter in the High Court, only those lawyers will handle it. That's not the case anymore. So technology is making way for superb revolution in the field of law. You're seeing it even in business, and it is also bringing about a lot of complications with it. It has its advantages, it also has its disadvantages. You're seeing cybercrime, you're seeing all these things happen, but that is also enabling a new generation of lawyers to come into play who are focusing more on these activities. We had the Information Technology Act, which was passed way back in the year 2011, 2012, or even before that. But the actual implementation is actually happening now. In a post-COVID scenario, you are seeing cybercrime, you're seeing scams happening over using information technology. You're seeing all these things happen. And law is playing a huge role in that. Lawyers are playing a huge role in helping agencies understand how to work around it. Till about 3-4 years ago, you would not have any lawyers in India understanding what the GDPR guidelines were. But now you have a lot of lawyers who are understanding that, taking courses in that, and working in that field, advising companies on those fronts. So the post-pandemic scenario has been, I think, great for the field of law. Yes, for the older generation, it's been quite a setback because they've had to unlearn a lot of things and relearn a lot of things. But it has helped them to a large extent as well, because they have engaged juniors who understand the usage of technology. But for the newer generation, it's become like a cakewalk.
So there are skepticisms as well, that there are chances that AI will take over all the work, we'll not be left with much of the work. How do you see that particular fear? And how would you like to suggest some ways of overcoming that fear and making sure that even if technology is coming in head on, still we have better chances of not only surviving but thriving in those practices? Because I've heard it from not only one person, but like so many legal practitioners, that if AI comes in, we will not be left with work. But as you were saying, I feel like there are more chances of us having better practices, better legal standing if we have technology by our side. So, what are your views and what would be your suggestion to the newer generation in order to understand this kind of collaboration that is happening between technology and law now?
See, I'll tell you what is happening. Like I said, that the way technology is an advantage, it's bringing its disadvantages hand in hand. Now, you have a lot of the newer generation of lawyers or this newer generation of clients who come to you with solutions that they find over platforms like ChatGPT. Now, even if you put an input on ChatGPT that draft me an entire petition, it does that for you in a matter of seconds. You tell it, give me a case law on a particular subject, it gives you about 5, 10 case laws on a particular subject. But the problem lies in how much of reliance do you base on it? See, finally, you can use these tools as mere reference points rather than they being your primary source of information. They can be used as enablers of making your work simpler than being used as a primary source of drafting or creating a document. And unfortunately, I'm seeing a lot of people doing that today. I'm seeing a lot of people using it in a manner in which their sole reliance is on that platform, on AI, which is not the best thing to do. For a simple reason is because, see, AI is also still learning. It is, I would say, still at an infancy stage. It is also learning. It will take its time for it to understand as to what inputs and what it's supposed to really give out as an output. But that does not take away from the fact that as a lawyer, your primary source of information has to be the books of law. It has to be the statutes that are there available, and they have to be the commentaries and the various precedences set out by the various courts in the country. Yes, it is going to create a scenario where future generations of lawyers may have to face certain hardships. But I always say this, that when you look at it not as a problem, but you look at it as an opportunity, it also brings about various elements of opportunities to do different types of work. And you should use AI to work on a global stage then. You're supposed to aim higher, and AI is only there to enable that for you. If you can do it, that's the best you should.
Sure, sir. That makes sense, definitely. I would like to move and ask you about the way that you are so busy. You actually juggle in your legal practice, then your firm management, then also with your social contribution with Drishan Charitable Trust. How do you actually prioritize your responsibilities? How do you have that work-life balance? And how do you make time for yourself? I would like to pick up a point of having better mental health, because that also has become a very important discussion nowadays, and especially in legal fraternity, because obviously, as you also said, that it's a very demanding profession. So how do you make sure that you are in absolute perfect shape for your practice, for yourself as well?
So far as my philanthropic work is concerned, that is something that I started about 15 odd years ago. So even before I got into the field of practice of law, I had started my organization. And we've done a lot of work since then. Obviously, prior to me getting into the field of law, the amount of attention and work I could do in the field was much greater than what I can do today. But that being said, our primary focus today is to ensure that we are able to provide financial assistance to anybody, any underprivileged child out there, whether he or she requires medical aid or whether he or she requires educational help. So we are working towards that. We've helped a lot of kids. In fact, just a couple of days ago, we conducted a massive eye camp just on the outskirts of Pune with the assistance of another organization, where we treated close to about 4,500 to 5,000 people, students basically, from the underprivileged backgrounds. And we did free eye checkups and we gave glasses of whoever required it. So this is something that we do. The reason we keep doing this, or rather I keep doing this, is basically it helps me have a different perspective about how the world is. That's number one. Number two, it also enables me to get my mind off the regular work kind of things. And it is extremely satisfying. As I always say to my friends, that it is something that gives me a massive kick and I do it for that. But when you talk about things like mental health, a lot is said about it these days. I think my generation or the generation before that were not really so bothered about our mental health and things like that because we were made to grind our teeth to the very core. And because we were made to work extremely hard, there was nothing like saying no to any task. So because of that, this element of feeling entitled to a particular thing never really arose for us. I feel a lot of the newer generation or the students that I see are always in this entitlement trap. And because they feel that they are entitled to a particular thing and when they don't get it, it starts putting a mental pressure on them. Yes, there are a lot of people out there who work in some toxic places where they're made to work, where the remunerations are not as good, and the entire environment is not really good. Yes, in such places, there are cases of mental breakdowns, but at the same time, what the field of law really does is that if you've really grinded your teeth well enough, it toughens you out and it helps you take on the world like no other profession can. Because see, what happens is, especially if you're in litigation, you learn the art of talking to the lowest person in the court to the highest person who is the judge. If you have to get your work done, how do you convince the lowest person in that from, say, the person who calls out the case, to the bench clerk, to anybody else? How do you work around that? That's also an art. And it teaches you this. It enables you to learn these things. So people understanding human resource understanding is something that gives you a lot of insight into.
But sir, all that is not that easy as well. The way you were saying that even people, they do understand that we have to work hard, but sometimes the work itself takes a different kind of toll.
Yeah, but
But
with these people, I always say that you need to have a hobby that you can pursue, whether it is music, whether it is sport, anything else. I mean, there are people who just like to take maybe a Sunday off and just go drive somewhere or cycle somewhere or take their motorcycles and go somewhere. You need that little bit of me time that you need to give yourself. And that is quite a lot to rejuvenate your mind and body. And it is important that you stay away from unnecessary vices. I'm not saying you should not have a vice, but you stay away from the unnecessary ones. So that will also help you keep your mind alert and be focused. Like, I have a simple rule that if I'm going to be socializing over the weekday, I will ensure that I will never have any alcoholic beverages. It's a rule because it can unnecessarily tamper with your mind. So you need a little bit of self-discipline as well. And that nobody else can do for you. That only that individual can do for himself.
beautifully put, sir. Thank you so much for bringing in these aspects also, because they also have a huge impact on mental health as well. So, keeping all this in mind, I would rather move forward and ask you about the kind of key skills or mindsets that you emphasize while you are mentoring the young law students or your interns or your juniors. And what kind of advice do you give them in order to make sure that it helps them stand out in the kind of competitive environment and the legal market that we are currently in? Sir, kindly shed some light on that as well.
See, the most important aspect for any young lawyer or any lawyer, I would say, young or old, new or experienced, is the ability or the thing that you have to read. If you are averse to reading, then you're not meant for this field. So, even whether it means reading the statute, whether it is reading the case law, or whether it is in reading your case file, a young lawyer or any lawyer has to have the ability to read. Second thing is reading between the lines is very important. So a lot of times you'll come across documents which are running to thousands of pages. But how to have a quick read, how to read in a jiffy, yet grasp and understand what is said in there so that you can give your inputs on it and give your advice on it in the proper manner. That is most important. Another skill that I always emphasize upon is the use of technology. So basic things like how to use your Microsoft Words or Excels or PowerPoint presentations. These are very important. Your command over the English language, especially if you want to practice in the higher courts, is very important. In fact, when you're practicing in law, you need to have command over all the languages that you either speak. But having knowledge and command over English is very important because if you get an opportunity, especially if you're practicing in the lower courts and you get an opportunity to practice or conduct a matter before the higher court or the Supreme Court, you should have the ability to speak over there. That also goes for if you get a job or an opportunity to work with a law firm and you're going to be drafting contracts, your contracts are going to be in English. And therefore, your command over that language is very important. That being said, the command over your native language is also important, because when you practice in the lower courts, which is the trial courts, a lot of times you would use your native language, which is like in Maharashtra, you'll use Marathi, or up north, you'll use Hindi. Down south, you will use any of those 4 or 5 languages that they speak there. But if you're going to be living in those places and practicing in those areas, you need to know the language there for sure. So that is another skill set that is very important. And the most important aspect of it all is the, I won't say the ability, but rather the desire to work hard. So if you can work hard, you can definitely excel in this profession.
Thank you, sir, for being so clear about all these aspects, which nowadays have become very important for everyone to learn from. I was reading about you on your LinkedIn
Right.
and the kind of work which Drishan has done. I was very curious about asking that. If you allow me, I'll just add on to one question.
Sure.
How did you pick up that you have to work on the eye department? Because you started your Drishan Charitable Trust in order to make sure that you work for not only students but who need help with eye. And it's not very easy for a non-doctor to organize such big camps. How did you do that? Because, sir, I have struggled with that aspect. We do run a small charitable trust here, and that is also almost 15 years old now. Why I want to ask you about it is because it becomes a little difficult to organize huge health camps when you are not a doctor.
You don't need to be a doctor, or you don't need to be equipped with that particular skill set to do that kind of work, to be very honest. I was all of 18 years old when I started doing this work. And it started off by me, to be very honest, using the money that I had collected during my 18th birthday. And I decided that I will utilize it to help one child get their eyesight back. How I came to work on the aspect of the blind is predominantly because the college that I was studying in that time would have these blind students there, and I would often see their struggle. So I said that if I can help one, maybe I can help start something with that. What happened was, when I did that particular activity, I did it purely for myself. I didn't do it for publicity. I didn't do it for anybody's attention. It so happened that the hospital that I helped this child get operated in and things like that, they informed the local newspaper. And that newspaper kept asking me to do an interview, which I rejected for a very long time. Until the editor-in-chief himself gave me a call one day and said that, look, I would like to speak to you regarding what you've done. And it so happened that by then my next birthday had come up. I had again helped another child. So they said, look, we want to know who you are and what you're doing. So I went there for a regular chat and I just spoke about what I'm doing and why I'm doing what I'm doing. Interestingly, without me knowing, he actually wrote an entire editorial about me in the local newspaper. And that paper got circulated in various parts of Maharashtra. And it created a position for me where I had people from across the state of Maharashtra coming to see me and meet with me and basically contribute to what I was doing. And that basically laid the foundations for Drishan, because by then I had collected so much money from so many people that I could not obviously retain that money for myself. So then I formed a trust. And through that trust, since 2010, we've restored eyesight of over 150, 175 odd kids till date. We've conducted various eye camps. So what happened was, we started working in this field and we realized that there was a disease called rubella. So I started doing my own research on this. And then I started understanding that there is nobody who's really working towards this. And it so happened is that I realized that there's no immunization program for it as well. So I started writing to the governments and I was writing to various authorities saying that start immunization programs so that we can eradicate this disease out of India. Interestingly, in 2014, when the present dispensation came into power, I happened to write to the Honorable Prime Minister. And in about 3-4 months, I got a response from the Ministry of Health saying that whatever I have stated out is being forwarded to the necessary departments and they are working on an immunization program. So that was extremely satisfying. And since then, because I also got busy with my work and things like that, my field work reduced and my focus changed toward more of helping kids, or rather the underprivileged kids, by way of financial help. So in order to do that, we conduct small little programs where they're more like fundraisers and things like that. And it also creates awareness amongst people. And my logic behind it is simple. So in Hindi, as we say, it's Sirf Drishti nahi, to Sirf Drishtikon Dena hai. That's how we are doing it. So what we are doing is we are working with the underprivileged children on one side. And at the second side, we started a new program where we're calling various thought leaders to come and speak on certain subjects, because we want to change and imbibe the feeling of nationalism and patriotism in the youth. So we are working on that as well now, slowly. So we recently did a program in the month of March or April where we had various speakers come and speak on the subject of Savarkar. So we're going to organize such more programs in the future to speak about various other people and basically instill a sense of nationalism and patriotism in the youth. What that also does is that also inspires them to carry on the work that I'm also doing. Because finally, what we are doing is helping the children of the nation, and we are creating them for tomorrow.
So सिर्फ दृष्टि नहीं देना, दृष्टिकोण देना is absolutely a beautiful motive and vision. I was just reading about this, and thank you so much for doing such beautiful work through your charitable trust. And not only beautiful, it is providing beautiful view to the people who never had thought that they will get this particular help. And at the age of 18, when you started, people don't even think about helping anyone else except for their own pockets. It's absolutely a beautiful cause that you are doing, and I really hope that your practice also helps this. And also the way you have been working, I really hope it grows leaps and bounds. And may God bless you with all that. And thank you once again for giving us
Thank
this
you very much.
thank you.